Welcome back to All Things Brewers. Today is game one of the NLCS between yours and our Milwaukee Brewers and the Los Angeles Dodgers. We're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming series, what to expect, what to look for, what to hope for. This video is not sponsored by anybody because I have 7 subscribers. Let's get into it. Little recap of the regular season. Brewers 6-0 this year against the Dodgers. Swept them in LA, swept them in Milwaukee. Does that matter? I'll let you think about it for a second. I don't think so. I don't think so. Here's why I don't think so. All 6 of those games came in the same 2-week stretch in July. Dodgers were not healthy at that time. That's when the Brewers were also blisteringly hot. So you're getting the Brewers maybe playing as good as they possibly could. The Dodgers didn't have their full team. Glasnow, I think, was injured. Sasaki was definitely injured. I don't even know if Ohtani was pitching yet. Mookie Betts hadn't rediscovered himself offensively. It was a very different Dodgers team than what we will be seeing in this series. So, yes, the Brewers proved they can win in LA. They proved they can beat the Dodgers. But let's take that with a grain of salt because very different circumstances. And the Dodgers kind of cakewalked through the regular season. Like they did. That's their right because, they have the craziest collection of high-end talent I've ever seen, but they didn't take the regular season as serious as they needed to. The Brewers did. They really, really did. So that 6-0 record, that's great. I hope that the Brewers can draw from that, but it's not the be-all and end-all. It's not something that I think we need to get too excited about. I waited a little bit to make this video. Sorry, it is windy in New York. I'm trying to have my window open because it's hot inside, but it's blowing my paper around, so forgive me. I waited to make this until the roster came out because I was curious what kind of moves the Brewers would make, if any. Was Woodruff going to come back? He's not. We are not seeing Brandon Woodruff in the NLCS. He did not get added to the roster. The only real move the Brewers made was dropping Nick Mears and replacing him with Tobias Myers. I thought about this move a lot, in the aftermath of the roster being announced, and where I landed is I think I really like it. Here's why. Nick Mears was fantastic for us in the DS. He was fantastic for us all season. He could see a role if the Brewers advance. He could be on the World Series roster if they make it there, but I don't know what kind of role he was going to have in this series. The Brewers have kind of filled the Nick Mears-esque role with Mizorowski and Chad Patrick both. The innings that would have gone to Nick Mears to kind of have a righty coming out of the pen that's not Uribe or McGill have been filled by Chad Patrick. So Mears was kind of redundant in the role that he was probably going to be used in. So adding a guy like Myers who can maybe give you some bulk, give you some length, for a team that's really struggled to find that as of late, I think is a good move. Myers, I don't know what his role is going to be in this series. I'm kind of imagining it's similar to what Mizorowski's was in the DS, where he's going to come in as like a pseudo bolt guy, and they're going to let him pitch until he stops looking like he should, be in the game. I think he'll have a short leash, but I think he has the chance to like we might be calling one of these games the Tobias Myers game, where he comes in the third and then he ends up going 4 or 5 innings of 1-run ball and just steadies the team, and the Brewers manage to take home the win. That could very well be the case. Tobias Myers was great in the Game 3 of the Wild Card Series last year, pitched the game of his life, and looked very good while doing it. The Brewers need as many innings as they can get. This series doesn't have the benefit as many off days as they had in the division series. The Dodgers are also coming in with a couple extra days of rest to set up their pitching, reset their bullpen. The Brewers are going to need somebody that's not named Freddie Peralta to, go multiple innings early in the game. Tobias Myers is hopefully going to be that guy. Maybe Quinn Priester bounces back. We'll see what we get out of the starting pitching. It was very, very shaky, almost non-existent outside of Peralta in the Cubs series. So, if you're going to go with openers in this series, which we'll get into, I think they will, then Tobias Myers is a great guy to have coming in relief. A little unfortunate for Nick Mears, who was so good this season, but that role has just been filled. Um, and speaking of which, I think Mizorowski and Patrick have to stay in the exact roles that they've been pitching so far in the postseason. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that those guys cannot be moved from what they've been doing. Mizorowski, in his first appearance in this series, um, was throwing just enough strikes. Like the fastball was all over the place, but it was coming in hot. Like 103, he touched 104 a couple times. The breaking stuff didn't look great, but he was getting guys out in front, like on their front foot, on 95-mile-per-hour sliders because they were geared up for 103. He was keeping them honest, and enough of his fastballs were hitting the zone that the Cubs had to swing, and he was kind of getting bailed out a little bit from some wildness. In his second appearance, he dialed things back a little bit. He was only throwing like 100 on his fastball, but the location was a lot better. He was spotting things better. He was hitting the black. He was like really he looked like a pitcher. He was pitching. And the breaking stuff, it still wasn't looking that sharp to me, at least on the broadcast. His curveball looked pretty good. The slider didn't look that great, but it kind of works like a cutter almost, the way he throws it. Where like guys are just you have to be so ready for his four seam that you're just swinging over the top of his slider if it's anywhere close because it's only 95. But Mizorowski seems to have found something in this role, and I think keeping him where he is as a guy that can come in and pitch 2, 3, maybe 4 innings and just like light up the radar gun, I think is perfect. We might, if this series goes long, we might see Jacob Mizorowski 3 times. Like I could very much see that being the case where you see him 3 different times coming out of the bullpen to pitch 2 or 3 innings in the middle of a game. And Chad Patrick has been electric out of the bullpen so far. Like this stuff has ticked up, which you expect to see, but it has been amazing. He was a guy that already got a lot of ground balls in the regular season, and his ground ball rate has skyrocketed. He's getting like 2/3 of his plate appearances, balls in play, have turned into ground balls. And the stuff like 97, 98 on the cutter is looking, with the 39, the lettuce and everything, it's looking a little Burns-esque. Granted, he's only doing it for 1 or 2 innings at a time, but, a man can dream. Chad Patrick has been so good out of the bullpen and so lights out that even for a team who's like starving for starting pitching right now, I don't think you can move him out of that role. I think it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of is the mindset I have with Chad Patrick right now, where as much as I would love for him to come in and throw 4 or 5 innings, it's just like it's not worth messing with a guy who's been untouchable out of the pen. He's basically replaced Nick Mears, and I think the upside on Chad Patrick is just a little bit higher. So that's kind of what we have roster-wise. Starting pitching-wise, I don't even know. I really don't know what's going to happen in this series. Obviously, we were hoping to see Woodruff come back because he's a guy that really steadied the rotation this year when he came back. They were still pitching him like every 6 days, really. They were trying to get him off days. And he wasn't going too deep into a lot of games. They started to push the pitch count up in his last couple outings, but even just getting him for like 5 innings every, 5 or 6 games was just so huge for a team that, outside of Peralta and Priester, needed consistency in the rotation. Woodruff provided that, and the upside on him was super high. So it's really disappointing to lose him for so much of the postseason. I don't know that Quinn Priester gets a start in this series. And it has nothing to do with how he pitched in the Cubs series, but it has everything to do with matchups. And we're going to get into, the Ohtani recipe, but I don't know how Priester fits into that. I think he'll probably have a similar role to Tobias Myers, where you're probably going to get an Ashby or even a Koenig as an opener, and then you go to Priester or not Quintana, or Myers to get 2 innings or so after. and you go from there. Like the Dodgers are probably going to continue to lead Shohei off, and I don't think that Priester's a matchup that the Brewers want against Shohei. I don't think it is advantageous for us at all. If it's a regular season game, then by all means you start Priester and whatever happens, happens. It's not that big of a deal. But in the postseason, the last thing you want to do is have a home game where 2 pitches in, the Dodgers are up 1-0. And so I think we're going to get a lot of, if it's not Peralta to start the game, I think we're going to get lefties. It's going to be Quintana, it's going to be Ashby, and it's going to be Koenig. Because I guess we'll just get right into it now because that kind of leads me into the Ohtani plan. It's going to be either electric righties, be it Peralta, maybe Miz. I guess you could throw Chad Patrick in there with how he's pitching right now, but even then, that's playing with fire. It's going to be like your proven righties or a lefty. That's what the Phillies did, and over a small sample of only a few games, is it the Phillies pitching that held Ohtani in check, or is his swing just not right now? Who knows? But the recipe for the Phillies was lefties who throw hard inside sinkers and sliders away. And I think the Brewers are going to use that same formula to attack Ohtani until it stops being effective. Quintana is slated to start game one. Like, we'll see what ends up happening there, but that's a guy who throws inside sinkers and then can attack Ohtani away. So you're going to see that. Ashby is we saw him open in the DS. I would bet money that Ashby gets a start in this series too. And I think Koenig is going to be used not necessarily as like a high leverage guy, but more as like an Ohtani guy, similar to how the Padres used Tanner Scott last year as just kind of like in case of emergency, rip off this Band-Aid and put this guy in to face Shohei. I believe the stat was the Phillies had 16 of Ohtani's 20 plate appearances take place against a left-handed pitcher. I don't know if the Brewers will be able to match that rate, just based on the fact that some of their guys that go multiple innings are right-handed. The Phillies had Christopher Sanchez starting games. Like they had, a couple lefties in the bullpen and Strom and forget the other names, but like they had a whole roster of lefties that they could put in to face Shohei. The Brewers don't necessarily have that. You've got Quintana, Koenig, Ashby, and maybe Robert Gasser, but Robert Gasser's not looking like a guy that I want to put in to face Shohei Ohtani in a close game. That's just me. But I think they're going to try and cherry pick as many tough at-bats for Shohei as they can, because if they can continue to have him hit the way he's hit so far in the postseason, that's like completely game-changing. He's the only player in the league that's capable of single-handedly carrying a team to victory. He could. There could be a game in this series where Shohei pitches 6 shutout and hits 2 homers. He keeps the Brewers from scoring any runs and then is responsible for all the Dodgers runs. He's just simply unchallenged as far as his impact on the game of baseball. The whole league runs through Shohei, so any series involving the Dodgers is also going to run through Shohei. And I think the Brewers are going to follow the recipe that Philadelphia did until Shohei makes him pay. So I think it makes sense to start Quintana today, and hopefully he can get through Shohei twice, and then you probably go to, I don't know, depends on the score, a lot of factors, but I think Quintana will start. I think Ashby will also get an open, and then that's when you'll see Quinn Priester, Tobias Myers come in to face maybe like the back part of the lineup. It's going to be interesting. Ohtani's slated to probably start 2 games this series too. So, does that tire him out? What effect does that have on his hitting? It remains to be seen, but for what feels like the first time in a long time, there's questions about what Ohtani's going to bring you in the box. Hopefully the Brewers can attack that, can capitalize off that. Matchup-wise, the Brewers bullpen and the Dodgers bullpen is the biggest swing in this series. The Brewers bullpen is hot, and they have been elite lately. Like, truly, truly elite. They did not win the DS without their bullpen. Their bullpen was the MVP of the National League Division Series. Since you can't give it to the whole unit, it's probably Andrew Vaughn, but it's really the bullpen. And the one weakness that the Dodgers have is their bullpen. That's why we saw Glass now come out of the bullpen in the NLDS. That's why Emmett Sheehan is in the bullpen. That's why Roki Sasaki has been moved to the bullpen. So the Dodgers do have, the luxury of potentially having 7 games started between Snell, Yamamoto, Otani, and Glass now, which is absurd to think about. Truly, truly daunting. But, once you get past those guys, what are you going to see? It's Alex Vesia is very, very good, very capable as a lefty. Sasaki has looked electric so far out of the bullpen. But what kind of and Sasaki looked good in high leverage against the Phillies. They brought him into a really stressful situation, and he pitched really well. But this is his first time really coming out of the bullpen and pitching in that role. If he comes in a 1-run game with and not in a clean inning, does he surrender it? Like, is the moment too big for him? We don't know. We haven't seen it yet. My gut tells me no. I think he is going to be a dog in this league, and I think he's going to, maybe establish himself in this postseason if he hasn't already. But, it's a question mark because it's not proven over any kind of long sample size. What the Brewers need to do to win this series is attack the starting pitching. And I don't mean attack like come out, swing early. I mean like make them work. Blake Snell is a great, great example for what the Brewers need to do in this series. He's a guy that if he gets into a 2-0 count, he's not throwing a strike. I'll walk you. I don't care. I'll just strike the next guy out because I'm that good. And you know what? He is. It works for him. And it's so unconventional, and it's kind of beautiful to watch as like a baseball fan. Like it defies your logic that this guy's like, fuck it. I'll just let you get a hit. I'll put you on base. I don't care. You don't matter to me. I'll just get the next guy. But it works. The issue with that is, his pitch count gets up there. He's also kind of susceptible to a home run ball here or there. So if the Brewers are able to make Snell work, push the pitch count up, and get guys on, like Snell's a guy that lets guys on base. And the Brewers are a team that is really good with runners on base. They can move up. They're the best base running team I've ever seen. Like, they are genuinely so pesky on the bases. Like, that's such a cliche, but it's true because they will make the smart decision. They'll steal a base. They'll go from first to third. They'll do all the little things you need to do to make at-bats uncomfortable. If Blake Snell gets into a 2-0 count against Sal Frelick and says, fuck it, I'll just walk you, 2 pitches later, Frelick could be standing on second base, and a little flare from Blake Perkins in the center is a run. You don't even need hard contact to produce runs in this game. And the Brewers are as equipped as anybody to attack the Blake Snell type of pitcher. They have a chance to really pounce on the bullpen if they're able to chase these starters early. Glasnow is a similar pitcher in that his pitch count will get up there. These strikeout guys usually are, because you have to throw a lot of pitches to strike people out if you're not pitching to contact. So I think that's kind of going to be the recipe for the Brewers. We saw them kind of take the opposite approach in the DS against the Cubs, where they were very aggressive early in counts. They were swinging often. They were trying to put the ball in play, create chaos. And I think we'll see a healthy dose of that, especially against the relievers in this series. But I think without the, benefit of all the advanced data and, all the planning that the Brewers are doing internally, I think the recipe is going to be make the starters work, try and get them through as quick as possible, and get to that bullpen. If the Brewers are down 3-1 in the 5th inning, it is not a comfortable lead for LA because you don't know what the Dodgers bullpen is going to look like, but you have a pretty good idea that the Brewers bullpen is going to pitch well. And I think that is where the Brewers have their biggest chance to win this series. It's in the discrepancy between the two bullpens. That being said, the discrepancy between the starting pitching is just as severe in the favor of the Dodgers. Like, all 4 guys that they're going to have start this game could win a Cy Young. Blake Snell's done it twice. Glasnow's just never been healthy enough to do it. Otani kind of almost did it one year while hitting 40 homers. Yamamoto was the Dodgers' most consistent and healthiest starter this year. Like, he was an all-star. The Dodgers starting pitching is very intimidating, and I think you're going to have to be prepared for the Brewers to have kind of slow at-bats early in the game. They're going to need to foul pitches off, to take balls, to take walks. Like, I don't think we're going to see the same kind of free-swinging, aggressive team that we saw in the division series, and I don't think we should. The Dodgers, on the other hand, are probably going to look to attack early. They're going to want to make it so the Brewers don't want to use their high leverage guys. Like, if you're the Dodgers, you would much rather see Robert Gasser come into a game than Jared Koenig. Like, you would much rather have, honestly, even Tobias Myers pitch a couple innings than Jacob Mizorowski. Like, the Dodgers are going to want to get out to leads early so that they can let their starters go. So it's going to be a really weird chess match early in these games, and I'm kind of excited for it. I think it's going to be interesting. The one other stat that I saw that I wanted to bring up is regarding the Brewers bullpen. Against the Cubs, they would just bring in guy after guy who was throwing 99, 100-mile-per-hour sinkers with hard-breaking stuff, and they were kind of like their stuff was blowing the Cubs away. The Brewers have that in their repertoire where they have all these different guys who just throw unbelievably hard, like, pitches. Like, their fastballs are fast, their breaking balls break, they're just nasty. The Dodgers hit the fastball. I saw the Dodgers had the third highest OPS on fastballs above 97 miles per hour this season. So you're not going to be able to just bring in even a Mizorowski and expect to just blow the Dodgers away for a couple innings. They're gonna stick around. Like, it's gonna be tough from top to bottom. The Dodgers have the most talented team in baseball. That's not a secret, and honestly, it's probably not particularly close. But the Brewers, top to bottom, have maybe the most consistent team in baseball. You have all of your guys, minus Perkins and Ortiz, who are defensive gems, have like above average OPSs. Andrew Vaughn is hot right now. William Contreras is hot right now. Churio's maybe hot right now if his hamstring holds up. Yelich is quietly hitting well. He's not hitting for as much power, but he's hitting well for the most part. Turang had that homer in Game 5 that maybe gets him going. The Brewers have a chance this year. It's interesting, 7 years ago today, I was at Game 2 of the 2018 NLCS when the Brewers lost to the Dodgers. But I can tell you from firsthand experience that being in the crowd when the Brewers are making a deep postseason run is insane. It is a crazy experience. Home field advantage needs to mean something in this series if the Brewers are going to win. They spent all season earning home field advantage. It paid off huge in the division series because they looked like a completely different team when they were in Wrigley. And I've got to hope that it carries over into this series. The fans stay hot. The Brewers need to start this series well, because if they take it back to LA and they're playing on their heels a little bit, it's going to be really tough to overcome that. So look for the Brewers to really go for it these first two games, because you got to take advantage of home field advantage. That's the whole point of earning it. The Dodgers didn't make an effort to earn home field advantage, and the Brewers need to, make that mean something. So to sum all this up, I think the Brewers have a real shot in this series. I think some people are viewing this like the Dodgers are inevitable, and maybe they are. And maybe they'll prove that, and, maybe this will be, a heartbreaking end to what has been a fantastic season. Maybe that is the case. My head says Dodgers in 6, but my heart tells me the Brewers can do it in 7. If the Brewers win this series, it's going to go long. I don't see a world where the Brewers win this in 5 games. If the Brewers win, it's 6, it's 7, and it's tight. So I want to say Brewers in 7. I really, really think that this can be the year if they're able to capitalize on getting Dodgers starting pitching out early, and if their bullpen keeps pitching the way it has against the Cubs. If their bullpen stays hot, they're going to be a really, really hard team to beat. Really hard. If the Brewers had kept the Cubs scoreless in the first inning of the NLDS, this wouldn't even be a conversation. Like, we would be like, this team is a juggernaut. This is insane. Nobody can touch them. The Brewers match up with the Dodgers so well. But because the Cubs jumped out to some early runs and they, let it carry them to wins in game 3 and 4, there's more question marks than we had before. I think the Brewers have a real shot. I think that the Dodgers have weaknesses, especially in the bullpen, and it's going to be all hands on deck for both teams. It's going to be a dogfight. I'm saying Brewers in 7. I think tonight Quintana gives you 4 scoreless and Churio hits a home run. He's got to be the guy in the postseason. Bad hamstring or not, he's looked defensively. He doesn't look like himself. On the bases, he doesn't look like himself. But if the Brewers are going to win, we kind of need a guy, and we need him to be the guy. So get off to a hot start in this series. I want to see Churio take Snell deep because I think that would just be, and you can't quantify what that would mean to the home crowd early in the game for the Brewers, early in the series. I'd love to see that. Churio homers tonight. Quintana pitches 4 strong, and the Brewers win 4-2. Let's get in Milwaukee. I would love to make another video previewing the World Series. If we don't get there, there will be off-season content. There'll be season awards. We'll do all that stuff, but I would love to keep this ride going. If not now, then when. Go Crew.